Hey everyone, and welcome to 121 in Flux. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we talk about movies on this show. And in this episode, we're going to look at a science fiction film, which, I mean, it's sci-fi month, so that's not a surprise. We've been doing sci-fi movies all month. But this particular episode, we are looking at a New Zealand film, which I actually did not know it was from New Zealand when I started watching it.
Was it as soon as they started talking, you were like, hang on, I've got a hunch here?
Well, this is the thing. Depending on the strength of the accent, sometimes New Zealand just sounds like a really weird English accent.
Really? Okay. If I was going to say it was close, and it's like a cross between Australian and South African.
Oh, that's not, because South African is a cross between English and Australian.
Yeah, this is in the middle of those two for me.
There's a circle of accents, and it's in there somewhere of like various noises. Honestly, when
ex-colonies is what we were trying to say.
when it's the just the guy narrating every so often, I wasn't really jumping at New Zealand. It wasn't until another character showed up that I went, "Oh, wait a minute, this is starting to sound really Kiwi here."
I wonder if this is just because I've got a friend from New Zealand, so I'm a bit more in tune with the accent.
Yes, because for me, I'm just I honestly, for the first chunk of the movie, I was like, "What part of England is he from?" I was really sitting trying to think, because it wasn't like super strong. You know, it wasn't strong enough that I was instantly going. Because I feel like New Zealand tends to be less strong than Australian.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, how do you say New Zealand? But like, instead of saying Australia, you say Australian. What's the New Zealand equivalent of that?
I don't know.
Because that's twice now.
New Zealandian?
I've went to say it twice now, and I've realised I have no idea.
New Zealandian? I don't know. It's starting to sound weird now. I'm doing all the things in my head.
Like, you know, you'd say I'm Scottish. Would you say a New Zealander? You'd call it a New Zealander, but you wouldn't say the language is.
They would be in
New Zealandian.
I don't know. This is a weird place to start this review.
It is, but I honestly don't know how to say it. They sound Kiwi. Kiwi.
That is true. Yes.
I don't know what accent that sounded like there when I said that wrong, but
probably nothing recognisable to anyone.
Also, I think this is the first film from New Zealand. The first New Zealandian film. See, I had to swap how I said that.
You have to really think about it, don't you?
I had to swap how I said that so that I didn't sound stupid, but I did it anyway because I said, no, I'm just going to show you what behind the curtain, that's what the thought process was. No, so this is the first film from New Zealand that I think I've seen that's not directed by Peter Jackson.
I think that applies to me too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not 100%, but I think that's the case.
What about What We Do in the Shadows? Is that New Zealand?
I think that's Australia.
You sure?
Is Watiti from New Zealand?
I don't know. I'm just trying to think that it's been a while since I've watched it, so I can't picture it as strongly.
I'm slitting it. I'm getting it.
Yeah.
I'm
just thinking. I was like, there's got to be something else I've seen from New Zealand.
It'll tell me down here. Oh no, you're right. New Zealand. Right, take it back.
Oh, okay, cool. There we go.
I only saw that last year though. So I mean, up until last year, it was Peter Jackson or nothing. Basically, so yeah. So what is the Quiet Earth? It's a good question. 4 minutes in, so it is I'll call it a fresh post-apocalyptic film. And what I mean by fresh is that it literally picks up right after the post-apocalyptic or the apocalyptic event.
Yes. Yeah. Usually there's some time, and you kind of get you'll learn about the world. This is the discovery of the world.
Yeah, so someone wakes up and oh shit, what happened? Like that's literally that first day. That's kind of where we're at with this. So it's a film from New Zealand, directed by what's his name, Geoff Murphy, and it stars Zach Hobson. Sorry, it stars Bruno Lawrence as Zach Hobson. Sorry, I said the character name. He wakes up and there's no one else around. It is him and only him in the city that he's in.
Yes.
I'm not even going to try and guess what city it is in New Zealand. I have no idea. And it's him discovering it, it's him walking around, it's him getting lonely, maybe going a little bit crazy, and then eventually there's another character who shows up, and it's kind of, and I'll give this credit because I criticised the sitcom Last Man on Earth because by the end of the first episode there's two other characters, and I went, I know there's going to be some eventually, but go an episode with your premise in the title, right? Whereas this is just called The Quiet Earth. It just means there's not a lot of people, so it's okay. We could have another one.
That is technically true.
Two people's not allowed.
They didn't hem themselves in immediately.
They did not. He questions if he's the last man on Earth. He does do that, and that's a natural thing to question when you can't find any evidence of anyone else, and there's no one answering any phones or radios or anything like that sort. So this came out in 1985. We'll start spoiler free as we usually do, and we'll get into it. And hopefully you've not all just turned off because you got frustrated with the New Zealand conversation to kick things off. My favourite thing about New Zealand is probably Rose McIver, who's not in this, unfortunately. She's probably not even born. It's 1985. She may be born. If she was born, she's a baby.
Maybe just.
Yeah, maybe a toddler. But
I don't know how old she is.
I don't know. I figure she's about my age.
It can't be that far off. But
well, she's not born yet. I was not born in 85, just for the record.
Yeah, you keep telling yourself that. I'm saying you're old.
I know when I was born, Connor. Just
I'm having a look. No, she's 88.
She looks good for 88.
Yes, very good. You couldn't help yourself, could you?
Well, phrase it properly and maybe I won't make that joke.
Hey. I never promised to phrase things properly on this show. That was never part of the agreement.
So that's the premise. So I mean, first time watch for both of us. Neither of us had seen this. So Connor, did you enjoy The Quiet Earth?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
that was not super enthusiastic. It was just a sort of I did not.
I didn't love it, but it's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. I dig it a fair bit. I think the first 30-40 minutes is really good, and then when the other character comes in, it maybe starts to dwindle a little bit compared to the first chunk. I think the first chunk, when it is just him and it's just kind of discovering what maybe happened, and the small things that sort of that, I really like that. And I like how subtle it is in a lot of ways. I feel like a lot of the beats that this movie plays, a lot of the sort of story points or character points that it wants to make, I feel like I can see it in another movie by another director with the same premise. And I feel like within 2 minutes of meeting a woman, there's this awkward tension of, will he, try something with her? And in this, it's no, they're reasonable human beings. And then after a little bit of time, it's like the question sort of arises, hey, we're kind of the last two people, maybe, do we start something? There's a subtle level of, he's clearly thinking that question is going to have to come up, but they're not going to ruin the first day together by...
It amuses me that I agree, because it takes its time with things like that. Yeah, I feel like his jumping to, maybe I'm the last guy on Earth, kind of comes a bit quick.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's weird how inconsistent it is in that, even though mostly it's it's maybe more on the subtle side and a bit slower.
Yeah, I don't know. I think by the time he says it, right? I mean, it's not that long into the film in terms of runtime, but I think by the time he says it, he's seen enough to at least throw the question out there. I think
he jumps to world too quickly.
Yeah, that's fair. He does have at least one major bit of evidence to support that, though, which we'll get to when we talk about spoilers. But I mean that's fair if you think that's a bit too quick. I like the eerie mood though, and I like that he doesn't realise he's alone at first either. He gets up for work, he's kind of just like grunting around. He's not very. He seems like a guy who's not very happy with his life right now. He's just kind of whatever. He gets in his car and he's driving, and it's not until he pulls over to refuel his car that no one responds, and then he's like, where is this person? This is weird. And then he goes looking for other things, and it just sort of snowballs from there. There's an eeriness to it that I really like. It plays it as a he didn't even notice that for the first part of his journey there was no other cars on the road. Like, that was just something that he didn't notice.
I do think that first part of the movie is the best part, and then I like some of the ideas that it plays with later.
Yeah.
But it's definitely less interesting once there's other characters.
I think the reason why it suffers a little bit when the other character shows up is because like, again, it's fine what it's doing in theory, and I like the ideas that it's playing with, but there's some character, as much as I just praised it for making some things, a bit more subtle and natural in the way it develops things, there's other character changes in, like, emotion, like, just emotionally, like Joanne, the female character who eventually shows up, she, like, has some leaps in kind of how she feels about things that seem to kind of, like, erupt and go up and down erratically that I don't quite understand.
She fluctuates quite a bit.
Yeah, so there's some problems with that. I will agree, and it does end really quickly. Although the final scene is one we're going to have fun talking about. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah.
It hits you with a nice ambiguous, "Oh, figure this out, you assholes," and then rolls the credits.
I got it figured. I'm good.
Oh, you got it figured. That's funny because I actually looked to see what the consensus was. I was curious before we recorded. Is there like a generally agreed kind of interpretation? Is there anything like that? And there isn't.
Well, then I'm gonna come in and give you one.
Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
That's it. Yeah. I think for me it's pretty clear what the movie's about. I think the ending ties into that nicely.
Even the director on the commentary track didn't seem to know exactly what the ending meant. But
well, he's just not enlightened enough.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to this now. I'm looking forward to Connor schooling everyone in the past 30 odd years since this movie came out who's not deciding what the ending means. Exactly what it means. Okay, alright, we'll see. I'm going to tear this to shreds. Even if I agree with that, I'm just going to tear it to shreds.
I know you are. I'm waiting for it now.
So
came in too hard.
You did. You came in too confident, and now I'm just looking to shoot holes in it. Alright, so actually, one of my favourite parts of the movie, or one of my favourite things about the movie, is there's a slightly kind of... It was made in the 80s, but this actually makes it feel very 70s to me. There's this psychedelic almost little touch here or there. Particularly, like, the characters will have these little moments where they kind of go out of it a little bit, and you'll kind of see this weird visual effect, and I really like that stuff, because it gave it this really otherworldly, like, oh, what's causing this? There's something going on here. Like, I give it that kind of mystery
I did
feeling.
like those parts quite a bit, and I think basically New Zealand is just a decade behind. So
I did not come in here. I mean, I know I sat and jabbered on about how to say New Zealandian in.
It's got worse every time.
It's gotten worse every time. New Zealandish.
See, that sounds like it works, but it's just wrong.
Yeah, it sounds kind of like you're saying someone's kind of like they're from New Zealand.
Yeah.
You're New Zealandish.
New Zealand-ish. Yeah.
So on the outskirts of New Zealand, you're not quite in New Zealand, but you're close. You're close.
Yeah.
Aye. So yeah, I won't stand for that. What I thought was interesting though is that all the animals have disappeared as well, and I think that's actually quite a plus in New Zealand's case, because New Zealand and Australia are like the most dangerous places on earth when it comes to various creatures that want to kill you.
I don't think New Zealand's that dangerous.
It's just as bad as Australia, I'm sure.
No way. No, I'm not standing for that.
How? Why do you think
it's just not as bad as Australia or other countries? It can't be.
Why? Why?
What do they have that's that deadly? Like widespread?
Oh, they have serious spiders and shit and snakes.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they do, but I don't know. I feel like there's other places that are much worse.
Okay, so what about Australia specifically more dangerous than New Zealand? Since you're reacting that strongly...
All right, okay. Here, you can't get punched by a kangaroo in New Zealand.
Oh, because that's at the top of the list. That's at the top of the list. I'm thinking of the most scary-looking spiders you've ever seen in your life. These big monstrosities. I don't mind spiders or whatever, but I don't live in a place where every spider can kill you with a touch.
I feel like New Zealand spiders are big, but they're not necessarily that poisonous compared to some of the ones that you get in Australia.
I've also seen some pictures of some really extreme fungus that's like super deadly.
Well, yeah, but that'll still be here in this film. So.
Oh sure. Like the point I'm making is that, comparatively speaking, New Zealand's a fairly deadly country when it comes to wildlife. All right.
We'll see. That will be left to the experts, more qualified than us.
Then why are you arguing with me on it?
I don't know. Just because I disagreed with the statement fundamentally, and I thought that can't be right. I'm gonna fight it.
It makes sense that it's on par or close to how dangerous Australia is
I think
with
you're
animals.
just saying this because the accents are related.
No, I'm saying it because it's near it. It's right next to it.
It's,
Similar climate.
sure.
Similar climate, similar wildlife. That's perfectly reasonable assumption to make.
It's reasonable, but I think it's wrong.
Why do you think New Zealand's so safe? I don't get it.
No, I don't think it's like perfectly safe. It just doesn't have the reputation that Australia does. I think there has to be a reason it doesn't have that reputation.
No, see what this is. This is why every New Zealander, right, hates foreigners, because they always just forget about New Zealand. They always just assume everything's about Australia, right? And they just assume you're Australian. This is what you're doing. You're just disregarding New Zealand. Oh, I've not heard about it, so it must not be a thing.
I'm sorry. This coming from the person that said what we do in the shadows was Australian. Yeah, don't you give me shit for that.
They had stronger accents though, so I thought that was Australia.
Didn't that even have that one like really prominent New Zealand guy who's who we see everywhere? He was in X-Files, and that guy who's everywhere.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah, he was in that, wasn't he?
He was. No, he was.
Isn't that the giveaway?
Look, mind fart. Hey, wait a minute. I never even thought of what we did. You just said that to correct me.
You said, "Oh, isn't that Australian?"
To try and make myself sound right. That was that conversation. Let's not throw me under this bus, right?
Oh, you're getting hit right along with me.
What's funny though is I'm Scottish and you're English, and the amount of times that people either mistake me for being English or mistake you for being Scottish is actually kind of funny that we're even having this debate about Australia and New Zealand, because we know their pain. We actually know their pain.
Yeah, we can relate, but
and hell, sometimes you get mistaken for Irish. So you know what? Like, we're in the same boat. We are. Like, doesn't mean we can tell the difference, but we're in the same boat.
We understand. Should we get back to the movie?
All that came from me cracking one little joke about how the wildlife being missing was a positive.
Yeah.
That's literally all I said, and then we went down this rabbit hole.
Oh, can you tell it's late at night, folks?
Okay. The ending's a bit quick. That's probably my point. It ends relatively abrupt. It is a short movie, it's 90 minutes, and I do feel like it probably could have used it all 10-15 at the end. Just in that last sort of stretch to really sell the character progression, I think. Yeah,
it's at that point where decisions seem to just be kind of all over the place.
Getting made left and right.
Yeah. Like I understand all of the decisions on a fundamental, like on a level in the script. I get why these decisions are being made, but they never justify them for the characters.
It's one of these weird cases where the first chunk of the movie is really steadily paced. Probably even more than the first half. It's probably like almost the first hour of the 90-minute movie is really steadily paced, and then we get to a point and it really speeds up, and all these decisions are getting made really quickly. And it's kind of the opposite of Looper, if you've ever seen Looper, where it's really nice and sort of steady, quick pacing until you hit this moment about halfway through, and it grinds to a halt. And I think the point I'm making here is that it doesn't actually matter which one's first. The change is a problem.
It is, yeah.
Regardless if it then feels too fast in the second half or too slow in the second half, it's a problem when it happens. And I think this suffers from it a bit less than Looper did, but it's definitely there. And I think
arguably it's more jarring though, because it feels more unsatisfying. Whereas in one where you start at the right speed and then it slows down, you're like, oh man, okay, that's fine. But here I'm like, no, go back, give me more time. Like it feels like they had a 90-minute deadline. It was like, that's it. Whereas
maybe they ran out of money, they wanted to shoot more stuff, but they had to start speeding up or something like that. I think it's debatable which one's worse, though. I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay, maybe that's just preference. To me, this is worse in that context.
Because in Looper, there's a specific moment, there's a scene where that's it, there's a change in one scene, and then it just slows. And I've never watched it again because the thought of getting to that point again, I find kind of.
I'd watch it again.
I don't know. Rian Johnson, meh.
You would be wronged, but whatever. That's not what we're here for. No, we've tangented enough.
I was just going to say, I also am not that fond of his film Brick.
I've not seen that one. I like the music a lot, though.
I think it sounds like a fun idea. It's a noir, but set in a high school. That sounds like a great idea. I don't know. Rian Johnson, not a great writer. And if he ever does anything big budget, and any big sort of franchise movie, I'd be worried about how that'll turn out. That's all I'm saying. I
wouldn't. I feel like it would be, really fantastic.
Well, you would be wrong.
I don't think I would.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a sneaking suspicion that he'd nail it.
Yeah. Then some sexist asshole edit out like over an hour and a half of the movie.
Yeah, but I don't know why some prick would do that.
Oh dear. How stupid was that story? I mean, I don't like the movie at all, but that is. Jesus.
No. Edit. I mean, do a fan edit of movies all you want. I'm all for it. People do it all the time.
Hey,
do it with reason.
It's an exercise in like sort of testing your editing skills. Like, I do like the idea of taking like a 2.5 hour movie and saying, "Can I cut an hour out of this and have it still make sense?" I actually kind of like that as an exercise to see if you can make it work. Obviously, the reason was just purely sexist in this case because it was. We're talking about Star Wars: The Last Jedi, in case anyone's not caught on. So, some asshole fan who hated the movie because there was too many strong female characters in it decided to make a cut with all the women characters cut out. It's 43 minutes long.
I saw someone retaliate earlier with an edit of Saving Private Ryan with all the men cut out. It's 1:45 long.
I did not see that. I did see Mark Hamill and Rian Johnson laughing at it on Twitter. Just laughing in tweets about the silliness of it all.
It is. It's stupid.
No porgs in this movie, though, so this movie's instantly better than Last Jedi.
The thing. There could have been porgs, and they vanished.
Oh, this is a tangent one tonight.
You don't know that there weren't porgs.
Yeah, it could be porgs in New Zealand, I don't know.
It might as well be.
I mean,
we clearly know nothing about New Zealand, so there might well be porgs.
Right. Do you know what? It's funny. I don't like Lord of the Rings, and yet I'm still tempted to make some Mount Doom jokes.
Yeah.
I almost feel bad,
isn't it?
Yeah, I almost feel bad that that's what they're known for at this point. That's where the Lord of the Rings were made.
Yeah, no. We feel bad because it's like, oh, that's what you get a name for, but the tourism boost that it gave them.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure
they're like, yes, go. We'll make it our national movie. We don't give a shit. Just keep giving us money.
Oh man, it's actually I learned this recently. There's a town in Canada called Vulcan, and they have turned it like they all sell Star Trek merch, even though it wasn't named Vulcan because of that. It just happened to be called Vulcan, but they have turned it into no. Here's
when something like that happens, you roll with it and you take as much as you can get.
Here's some Spock merch because why not? Come to Vulcan.
Do you reckon they just sell ears, like pointy ears?
Of course they do. You put them on your ears.
Do you reckon like all the people in all the shops just wear pointy ears all day?
Oh, they should. They probably hate themselves. They probably want to jump in front of a bus at every chance they get.
And there's that one guy in that one shop who's like, no, I refuse to take part in this. I will not wear the ears.
I imagine it's like one of those scenes in like a movie where it's just this awkward silence when you walk in. They're all just standing there looking depressed, staring into space.
Yeah. Oh boy, we are really off topic here.
Right, The Quiet Earth.
Yeah, we'll try again.
Yeah. Well, I think we're already going to spoilers and talk about plot. In terms of acting, I think the acting's fine. It's a very different type of cast than I think we're used to for movies like this. I feel like, again, going with that idea of it feeling more natural, we have... Like I think Lawrence, who plays Zach, the lead, he's a bit of a normal schlub. He's not like this Hollywood.
He's a very normal guy,
dude. Yeah, and I think I can appreciate that. It makes it give it a bit more credence as to the real things that are going on. And likewise, Joanne, when she shows up, she's she's like, again, a bit more normal. She's not this supermodel. It feels like real people who survived this, and not, oh, it didn't just happen to be Will Smith,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So
I'm really resisting the urge to correct more New Zealand jokes, but carry on.
No, see, now you're just being mean, because
now I've said it. It's all in your mind, but I don't have to say the jokes.
Because that's just cruel. You're just going to make crack a joke about how New Zealand folk don't look like A-listers. That's
no. I didn't say nothing.
Coming from a pair of ugly bastards like us, that feels a bit a bit out of line.
Hey, we already established we know the problem that New Zealand and Australia have, and we're still doing it anyway. So why not?
Okay, fair point. I'm so sorry to any Australian or New Zealanders that are that are watching this one. I really do.
Oh, they turned off ages ago. Don't worry.
Hey, we've not tried to do any impressions of the accents yet, so I mean, we're still. I think out of the nuclear zone.
Yes. Yeah. It's only a matter of time though until you give it a shot.
We're at napalm levels, but we're not in nuclear.
Yeah. Sounds reasonable. So spoilers.
So spoilers for the movie, because I think there's a lot of interesting things to talk about. Music's pretty good, actually. Just before we get spoilers, the music's generally, I like the eeriness of it. There is one moment though that really bothered me. There was a sudden jolt at one point, as if it was like doing like a. It was almost like a horror movie sting at one point, and it was just kind of in the middle of a scene.
I'm trying to remember where it was. Which scene?
It was when Joanne was around, and he was he got frustrated at one point, and there was like a jolt in the music, and it felt really over the top,
overly aggressive. Yeah.
However, one moment out of the rest of it where
most of it was really nicely orchestrated.
A lot of silence as well, which I think obviously works because you're trying to, again, the movie's called The Quiet Earth.
Yeah.
You want the movie to be quiet for chunks to sell that idea, so that makes a lot of sense. Spoilers then. So we have our Zach's on his own for a long time, probably 30 to 40 minutes.
Yeah, I'd say about that.
And then Joanne shows up, and then eventually we also get AP, who's the third character who shows up, and as soon as you see him, you're like, oh god, there's going to be a love triangle, and there's going to be two men and one woman left. It's going to happen. But to be honest, it's not actually that big a deal. I mean, like some of the other ideas, it's brought up, but it's not necessarily treated as this awkward drama thing. There's a couple of glances, but for the most part, by the time we get to that point in the movie, Zach's kind of more concerned about the fact that the world's probably going to end in a couple of days. So he's...
I will say that does lead to some decisions from her getting a bit, she kind of flip-flops between them at the end a bit.
She does. Her thought process for the last 15, 20 minutes is almost impossible to follow.
Yeah. I was like, wait. You just give him a kiss and then nearly crashed the car, and then the other guy did something cool, so you're going off with him.
By the way, I did love the line, because at first she was really against AP, right? And then, like, there's the whole thing where they kind of fall out, and Zach's like, no, I have to go back to the research space. We'll talk about what that is in a minute. But he drives off, and then AP gets in his truck, and he pulls up next to her, and he's like, you coming? And she's like, I wouldn't ride with you if you were the last man on earth. And he just goes, I'm working on it. And then he drives off.
He pulls out his shades.
That was a fantastic... Yeah. It was kind of silly, but it was a great one-liner. I'm not going to lie.
Fantastic. It was the best line of the movie.
So that's cool. But to go back to the start, I really love when Zach's on his own. I think one of the simple little things it does actually is that you get him naked a few times. You start off the movie with him on his own. He's completely naked. He's just lying on top of his cover. So there's some full frontal nudity. And you see him just occasionally. There'll be times when he's running around naked. He goes swimming at one point naked. And there's another point where he's put on like the little evening dress thing. And he's naked in that. Because at one point he sort of falls over and his thing's flopping around. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is that I think it actually really sells the idea of the movie. Because if he was completely on his own and he believed he was on his own, he wouldn't care.
No.
Like you would walk into a shopping mall naked because you could. Because there's no one to care.
I don't think I would, just because of you're conditioned into wearing clothes.
Oh, sure. He doesn't do that. Like, he doesn't actually do that specific one. I'm just saying, like, he doesn't care. There's like a sort of comfort to him. Admittedly, it's kind of balanced though, because he always walks around with a gun, even though he believes he's on his own. But it's just in case. There's that fear that someone else might actually try and hurt him or something. So he always keeps the gun. I think there's a bit of commentary you could read there that even when he thinks he's on his own completely, he still goes around with a gun at all times.
Yeah, he's watching his back just in case.
There's something to say about that. But so we have the opening stuff where he's discovering that there's no one there, and he's looking around, and he's going into various places. Of course, it all kind of caps off with what really sells the eye, because there's no one around. It's not even like you see dead bodies, right? But he eventually finds this crash plane on the outskirts of the city, and he gets to the seats. And the real fascinating thing, this is a really good bit of communication with the audience to tell us something, is that he finds the buckles and the seat belts, right? And they're fastened, as if someone was sitting in that chair, but there's no body there. So in one simple little visual, it tells us, hey, they disappeared. It's not just that they all died. They're
just gone.
They vanished, leftovers style almost.
I was just going to say that.
Just instead of 2%, it was 99.99999999999%.
That's a lot of nines.
I'm probably still cutting it short.
Probably, but just 9 recurring.
Yeah, well, it's the point being it's just him left, right? Like, just it's not even. It's basically 100%, just with a room for mild error, mild margin of inaccuracy.
So that's the thing. 99.99 recurring isn't enough. It's not close enough.
It's not. No. One person, and at the time, 6 billion, maybe slightly less than 6 billion, 85.
Yeah, just not close enough.
Yeah, so So I was really enjoying all this stuff. It was really atmospheric. It was on his own. There wasn't a lot of dialogue. It was mostly just him looking around. It was all visual, and I liked that. It was eerie. Him walking down the street, and there's no one there. Great stuff. And it's always great when they do that. Like I'm not a big fan of the ending of 28 Days Later, but that stuff at the start when Cillian Murphy's up and he's looking around the streets of London, and there's no one there.
Also, a movie where the first half hour is its best.
I agree. I still like most of the middle of it. It's just the last half hour of that movie I do not like.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, people will disagree with me on that. 28 Days Later has its fans, but I don't like that last chunk at all. Anyway, go on if you want to.
No, I was just saying, it doesn't ruin the movie for me, but yeah, not a great last third.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it ruins the movie, but I've got no desire to watch it again because I know it's going to go there. So,
much like Looper, then.
Well, much like Looper, yeah.
Look at that, we're bringing it full circle on these tangents.
The loop is complete.
Oh, good.
See, that's why I'm the punning guy, because you had an opportunity there with a full circle, and I'm like...
Setting you up.
It's a loop. Aye, sure.
Setting you up.
So, all that stuff really good, but then he goes to this research centre, right, and we kind of discover, okay, this is where he worked. And it's like, okay, what would they do? And we kind of discover throughout the movie, like... This station in New Zealand, along with stations all over the globe, they were all trying to make a new type of power grid, like some new advanced thing. They were messing with the laws of physics and whatnot.
Yeah, were they trying to make it, or did it exist and they're trying to tap into it?
It could have been that. It was kind of vague.
It was vague, I think.
Yeah. But I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. So he actually thinks that they might have caused this.
Mm.
After this section of the movie, he always refers to it as the effect. This is what,
yes,
the effect of this thing happening. And he does find one body. He finds a body in like a control room. And we can theorise as to why he's not disappeared in a bit. Although we find some dead bodies later on as well. But there's a reason for that.
I think that the reason for this applies as well.
Well, it's probably the same, but they never go into it in like as great detail where you really sort of... Because within the main characters, we get like specific flashbacks saying, okay, this is exactly what was happening, and yeah, you assume it's the same sort of core reason. You just don't know the context for it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so he's in there and he's like researching stuff, and he's on the computer and he's like looking up the other sites. He's like contacting Los Angeles, New York, Paris, London, all these stations are, and none of them are responding. And this is why we're saying this is the big main bit of evidence that he's got, that it's not just here, that it's everywhere. Especially since, I mean, obviously, even if you don't buy it yet, like after a week and no one's came into the city, that you'd start to,
Oh no, that's fair.
that's when
But
you'd really start to think about
but
that.
he gets there that day still, pretty much.
Yeah, it's almost like he had. Well, that's the thing though. Later on in the movie, you find out that he was worried that something bad might happen because
That's true.
we found out later that the reason why he and the others survived is because they were all dying at the point that this happened. The moment where the effect came into place, which is the visual effect with the red and the
Yeah.
very very 2001 trippy sort of thing.
Yeah.
But because they were technically in a moment of death, they weren't there when it happened, so they come back to life, and like that's why they've survived, because they were all in a state of dying. And he was actually ODing on pills intentionally because he had guilt over what might happen because of this project he was working on.
Yeah, it's what I think maybe happened with the the guy whose body is there in the facility. He was, I don't know if he tried to kill himself or whatever happened, but he knew he should have been dead and then tried again essentially afterwards.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
Which is why there's a body.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because we find out there's we find some other characters in like a car at one point, and they're still there. And the theory is, no, they were still here after the effect, but then they died after. So that makes sense. But yeah, so and he gets his tape recorder and he just he gives us the first sort of glimpses of it. And I actually really loved this stuff of this theorizing, like, okay, now it's like proper science fiction. Some deranged science project ruined the Earth.
Yeah.
And as the movie goes on, there's like these other little moments where you get this visual effect again, and it's like, especially in the second half, where he starts to notice the sun, it's fluctuating. The readings he's getting on his like his light reader are like fluctuating, and like, oh, something's weird, something's happening. It's almost like we're either in a parallel Earth or the universe has been altered because of what we did. Like, things are unstable, and it's basically like eventually this effect's going to happen again. Like, and by the time he figures that out, there's only days left. It's been months total since they woke up, but by the time they figure this out, it's close.
Yeah.
And there's actually one where he calls it like a tremor, where they all kind of have that visual effect moment, and then they all end up in different parts of the house, and they all think they've all disappeared again, but then they kind of come back.
It's really trippy sequence there.
Yeah, it's really good, and I love what it was playing with that. And it's all building up, because that was like the ultra sci-fi stuff to me. I mean, obviously just the idea they're on their own is sci-fi enough, but just this idea of like the universe is out of like sync, and like weird things are happening because of it, and it almost makes you think, like, did those other people disappear, or did it just put them onto like another Earth, or they're in the regular Earth, and it's just these people who were dying who got shifted to this copy of Earth?
Quite possibly.
Like, I think that's a possibility there. So some really interesting things to think about.
Definitely.
As the movie goes on. And then the character stuff, makes some sense, where she shows up. And I like that after a moment of like, okay, make sure we're both not serial killers, where they just hug. They're just happy to see another person. Because he, of course, was going crazy before here, where he like set up like the cardboard cutouts outside the big mansion he'd moved into.
Declared himself president of the world.
Yeah, he was having a big politician speech. He had cardboard cutouts of Hitchcock and Hitler and various other famous people of years gone by, and he was just like shouting at them. And it was actually funny, it was right before this scene where I was thinking, eventually this electricity has to stop working, because he kept plugging things in, and I'm like, this power has to die out eventually. There's no work functioning thingy.
It's not unlimited. Yeah, exactly.
And sure enough, in the middle of this big speech he's giving, the entire power goes out in the city and everything. And then you see he's got generators for the smaller house. He kind of like smartens up a little bit and says, okay, I'll get a smaller place that's just for me, and then I'll have a generator, and I'll be fine for a while. And all sorts of stuff. But then eventually he meets Joanne. And some of the ideas that I really like with those two is, I love the idea that there was a bit of flirtation. It's like, oh yeah, we're probably going to end up doing something, but you know what, we're not rushing to it. But I really like the whole idea where they start looking to see if there's anyone else. And they sort of like say, okay, we'll split up and you can go to the university, I'll go to this place, the hospital, whatever. And they're looking for different locations. And I really like, this is the first time they'd split up. Like, since they'd met, they had been side by side. And they get walkie-talkies, and like, they're kind of scared that if they split up, they're not going to see each other again. They're actually terrified of that. And I actually thought that was a really fascinating idea. Yeah,
me too. And I love that the way this goes, where he just kind of lies to her, which I think is fascinating, because obviously, they've played it like, oh no, with the last two people, we're doing everything together. We're in this now. And then he, first opportunity, he kind of just goes off and does his own thing.
Yeah, and it's not like he's doing something insidious. He's actually trying to do more research to figure out what's going on. So
He is, yeah.
He's doing something with a reasonable purpose. He just doesn't necessarily think it's as important to do what she's doing, and he thinks he's got his own thing to do. But like, I love the idea, like the idea of the fear, like they're so terrified of losing each other now, even though they've only known each other for a few days. The fact that they found after being alone for weeks. They found someone. It's like no, like she's calling him every 2 minutes on the walkie-talkie. Like, are you okay? You okay, Zach? Like, you there? Talk to me.
And he's like, yeah. I said, I'll contact you in half an hour. Come on.
Yeah.
Half hour.
And eventually, of course, they run into AP, who you can tell someone else is going to appear because there's this trap. Like the trucks keep blocking all the paths where it can go in the car.
It's like, okay, no, these are positioned. This is leading somewhere.
And it's funny you brought up Zach lying, because that's actually kind of one of AP's things when he shows up, is that he calls him a liar. He says he lies. Because the first thing he does is he lies to him, because AP asks him, hey, is there anyone else? Is it just you? And he says, it's just me. And then 2 seconds later, the walkie-talkie goes off and, Joanne's there. And so it sets that stuff up, and he keeps coming back to that. And what I like is the idea that he does lie technically a lot in the movie, but almost every time it's with noble intentions. It's never... he's lying to get away with something. Because up until the end of the movie, like the very final moment, is he kind of lies and says he's going to go and get the remote control thing. Because they have this plan to try and kind of disrupt the grid. They're going to blow up his research base. So they get all this big truck full of all these explosives. Which, by the way, were you like just face palming when they were trying to push that like truck that was not even just any truck?
Oh my god, it was an explode.
It was an oil tanker, right?
I was like, oh my god, you're doing this with a massive lorry full of explosives. It's going to explode. Don't do this. Don't. And he just rams. He doesn't gently kind of push it. He just rams it.
Yeah, and the first 2 times just a little nudge, and I'm like, oh, this is getting tense. And then he goes really far back, as if he's going to do a nice big run-in to push it out of the way. And I like how the other 2 characters just go, oh, this is bad, and they actually duck behind the car. They're like, oh no, this is going to... like, he's going to kill himself. And I was half expecting it. But Zach basically makes this sacrifice where he thinks, oh, Joanne's better off with AP. They seem to care about each other more than she does for me. Even though she's adamant that she likes both of them. Like, she's like... she says she's lucky because she likes both of them. But he does this noble sacrifice thing where the movie ends with him kind of riding the truck full of explosives into the base and setting it off. And it's kind of this hurrah. And that does tie into his guilt, because, like I say, we found out that he was trying to kill himself earlier on in the movie at the start because he had guilt over thinking this might cause a problem.
That's ultimately the theme of the movie, is death.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. But I feel we haven't mentioned that yet, and we're 40-odd minutes into this.
Oh, sure. I mean, not only was he trying to kill himself, AP was being killed by a friend.
Yes.
Which, the first time he says it sounds like he just murdered his wife, but it turns out later on, no.
She committed suicide.
She committed suicide because she was in love with AP, and AP said, oh no, you're my best friend's wife. No, I have to reject you, because that is the noble thing to do. And then she killed herself, so then his best friend blamed him and tried to kill him. So he was being drowned at the moment. And then Joanne just happened to be accidentally electrocuted by a hairdryer.
Of course.
Hers was silly. Like, the other two were really dramatic, suicide and murder, and then hers was just, oh, hairdryer.
I appreciate the realism of it, though.
Yeah, it was just one random one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Because I think that there is then a debate, before we talk about the final scene after the explosion, right? I think the one thing your mind goes to is the entire thing just a form of purgatory? It's not actually happened on Earth.
I would go one step further and say it's actually hell.
It's actually hell. It's specifically hell.
I think it's specifically Zach's hell.
Right. Do you think because there's even conversation in the middle, well, not in the middle. It's actually when they're getting the truck.
It's right towards the end. Yeah.
But where he's like, oh, sometimes I wonder if you two are fake. You're just here. It's, I'm still alone, and you two are just here to kind of torment me or teach me things or whatever. And I think that's an interesting idea, and that does kind of support the idea that it is all just hell.
Yeah,
and it's not real.
I think there's a few things I know. One of the few things I do know about New Zealand is it has a large Catholic population, and obviously one of the biggest sins for Catholicism is suicide. So the idea that he killed himself so he gets punished, and so at first it's very traditional form of hell in the sense of, there's always this false hope. So at first it seems like, oh no, this world's pretty good to him, and then it gets worse, and right as it's getting worse and worse, then he meets someone, and it's like, okay, it's better again, and then someone else comes in and steals her away, and it gets worse and worse. It just keeps happening, and we'll get to the ending as well. How I think the ending plays into that, but we'll do that when we get there.
Okay. No, I think that's a fair interpretation of it. I think part of me goes with purgatory, because I actually kind of like the idea that they're all three of them are real.
No, okay.
I like the idea that all three of them are real, and I like the idea that Zach's whole story is that he has to sort of because essentially, like, he sort of killed himself in a kind of selfish, kind of, almost like cowardly act, where he just kind of like quit. Like, he didn't actually take any responsibility. Whereas I feel like his story throughout the movie is eventually to actually take responsibility and actually try and fix it.
Yeah.
And then in this purgatory, that just it sums up to sacrifice for the better good. Whereas the first time it's just that, oh no, I can't live with facing the consequences of this, so I have to check out. I have to go. I think if they all end up here, because I think the whole idea, because I actually do like the idea that it is real. And the reason why anyone who's still around is here is because they happen to be dying. I actually like that idea on its own, but I think it's also the biggest sign in the movie that it's maybe not as real as it's presented. It's.
I will say, just to support my theory here with the ending, to touch on it just briefly, is the idea. I said, things get worse and worse, and then it's as they get better, they get worse again. It's right at this end where he's accepted that Joanne should be with AP. She's like, oh no, okay, fine, I'll do the noble thing. And it's okay, as he's resigned himself to that, he's accepted it, things get worse again. He's, that's it. That's the ending there.
Yeah. The ending is this then. So he then wakes up again. Now he's on a beach after the explosion.
Yeah.
And he looks up, and first of all, there's clouds that have big funnels going down into the water.
Yeah.
It's a really surreal image. And then slowly, there's a planet. It looks like Saturn. It's got a ring.
It's got Saturn. Yeah, I think it's Saturn.
It's Saturn, or it looks like Saturn. That comes into sort of view in the skyline. So we're close to a planet, close enough that you can see it in the sky.
Yeah, presumably this would be one of Saturn's moons, by that logic.
Oh, I mean, I wasn't taking it literally that we're...
No,
yeah.
If you were going to take it literally in that sense.
Because throughout the entire movie, we've been talking about the Earth changing, so for me, this was still Earth.
Okay.
But things have changed. Things are out of sync, and things have went wacky, and that's why the clouds are looking like funnels and whatnot. And it's funny, like, because this actually kind of goes along with your idea of hell, but I like the idea that it's not eternal necessarily, but it's more like trials, or it's more like, the whole Dante's 7 circles of hell, or is it 9 circles of hell, whatever, how many circles of hell there was in Dante's Inferno. And this was like layer 2 or something like that, where he'd got into the next stage.
No, I get it. I love the idea that as soon as he accepts it, and we should point out that when he drives the truck, he fails. He doesn't get to the dish that he's trying to destroy. He crashes before, and he knows that because he goes. I think he just says, "Oh shit," something like that.
Yeah.
And then it explodes, and that's when the effect happens again earlier than he expected. So again, it wasn't as expected. It wasn't when it should have been.
But that said, though, I did see theories online that this is actually heaven at the end. That there was purgatory throughout the movie, and then the ending's actually heaven. He just doesn't understand what it is yet.
Okay.
I think you have to take some meaning in the planet, and the cloud funnels.
No, quite possibly.
Because as much as you're saying, okay, it means this and it means this, I don't know, like, okay, so what significance do they have if this is just hell again?
I think to me it's saying, okay, so now he's alone again, and this is oh no, it's even more alien. So Earth's even less like before, when he was alone, he was surviving. It's like, okay, there's houses, there's shops, he can go and raid. There's all these things that he's doing. Now it's like, oh no, new playing field. You've got to start from scratch. You've got to learn to survive on this version of Earth if you want to keep going.
Okay. I'm not sold on any interpretation, to be honest. That's why when you said I've got it sorted and you came in all arrogant at the start, I was just kind of like, you're full of shit, because I think this movie's intentionally not supposed to be taken any one way.
No, that's fair. Yeah, but I'm going to take it that way.
I think there's an ambiguity to it, and I think maybe it's because I'm an atheist, right? And I don't like this idea that I'm fine with it being purgatory, and I'm fine with hell even being part of it. But I think for me, I like the idea that him learning something and accepting it over the course of the movie actually means something and actually matters.
Yeah,
and
I get that. Yeah.
And if it's what you're saying, if it's hell, then it doesn't matter.
No, he's. It just gets worse anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think fundamentally, I just don't believe that someone can't learn from their mistakes.
That's fair, but I like this more as a concept. For me, at least, I like more as a concept of tough shit. You know, like again.
You wonder why I call you cynical.
No, I know. Again, also an atheist, but I just like this idea of no, that's it. You had your shot, and you threw it away, and that's it. You get worse from here on out.
I actually prefer it if it's not specifically hell or purgatory in a theological sense. Like it is more science based, where where this is more random anomalies and numbers, and that's not to say that I think it really happened. And like I do think they died and they went somewhere, but it's not like purpose. It's not you got into the pearly gates because you were good, or you went here because you were bad.
Just more. This is just what it is.
This is just what it is. I like the kind of the cold hard science of it rather than the theology of it. But that's maybe just my taste more than it is anything else.
I can appreciate that.
But I think that's maybe part of the strength of the film. Is I think a lot of people will probably see the ending, it'll just roll credits, and you're like, what the hell was that? Because it is completely ambiguous.
Did you let the credits play until the freeze frame?
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it freezes on his face.
Obviously, he takes out the dictaphone again to confirm, more that he's still the same. Like, he's still got that. He's still exactly how he was. It's just everything around him that's changed, which is why I think hell, because again, or at least some. I mean, maybe you could say a version of purgatory for that still, but the idea of no, you still exactly who you were. You're still where you are, but your surroundings are worse.
But that's you taking it literally as hell. You could argue this is more just it represents hell, but it's still a scientific thing where this version of Earth only exists because he tried to explode the network, the grid, and doing that to the grid's what created this.
No, that's true. But I think it's interesting because obviously, if he hadn't tried to explode it, the event would have still happened anyway. Like it would have still happened that second time. Except he wouldn't have been dying in that moment. Right?
Well, yeah, but you don't know this is what happens during the event.
No, that's what I'm saying, though. Like, I wonder what would have happened, because we see he's dying during the moment again, right, from the explosion, as it happens.
Well, see, that for me, this is why I think it's purgatory, because to me, this is about them accepting death and not doing anything about it. Him fighting back and like saying, no, we have to do something, is almost no, I'm not accepting that this is death. I'm not accepting this is over. Even though I know that kind of doesn't jive with the fact that he decides to kill himself to kind of save them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets murky in that sense.
It does.
That was one of the other things that I saw when I was looking for just what the general different ideas are of this movie, because this is the beauty of a movie that's this old that has an ambiguous ending, is that people have been talking about it for 30 years. Yeah. And basically, the one consensus that I saw, which is not a consensus on what anything means, it's just a consensus that no matter what interpretation you have for the end of this movie, there's something for every single one of them that faults it. Every one of them has a flaw.
Probably, yeah. I'll agree with that.
Yeah. So it's funny because, again, even my own ideas kind of conflict themselves, because on the one hand, I really like the idea that he actually learns over the course of the movie that he was a coward before and he has to take responsibility and therefore sacrifice himself to save them. I like that growth, but at the same time, the other thing that I was arguing there was that, well, no, because he's not accepted that he has to die in the same way and just let things happen. Doing so and dying, being at death again at the moment where everything happens, when the grid goes and the event happens, the effect happens, is what then damns him to be woken up again in the new, sci-fi world that we end up at the end. I don't know. There's a book. It's based on a book. So maybe we go read the book, Connor, and you can come back and tell us what.
Maybe I will. Give me a couple of weeks.
And you can tell us.
I mean, no, I don't know how long the book is. If it's less than 300 pages, I'll report in next week maybe.
Okay. I have no idea how long the book is. I didn't know it was based on a book until it said in the credits.
No, me either. So then I saw that, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe the book was into some of this a little bit more.
Maybe. I find it unlikely though, because that would kind of defeat the point, right?
Probably. If anything, the movie probably. Oh, that's not entirely true. Sometimes there has been examples where I'm thinking of Stalker, which we did. The book was way more detailed in describing why things were happening and what was going on.
Yeah, but I can't. But in general, it might be a bit more descriptive. But for the ending, still, I think it's still going to be very vague.
But go find out.
All right. Maybe I will.
Go find out. You can sit there and argue with me about it. Go find out. And come back.
Maybe I will.
Good. But yeah, I think for me though, I don't like the idea that this is literally hell or purgatory. I like the idea that it just represents hell or purgatory.
No, that's fair.
I think I lean towards purgatory. I think because it feels like there's lessons to be learned.
Yeah.
As opposed to it just being punishment.
I get what you're saying. That he does have a character arc, so there is growth, literally, like, in that sense. So yeah, there are lessons. But like I said, for me, it always seems like everything he does just gets worse anyway. Doesn't really matter, which is why I lean to hell.
See, I don't know if I agree, because even when he meets Joanne, he was actually doing okay for a while before that. Like, he'd settled into his new house.
He did for a bit, yeah, but he got worse, and then it gets better, and then it gets worse again. It keeps happening.
No, but it gets better, then gets better again. Like there was no worse when he met Joanne. It was just things were getting better. He'd settled into things, and then he met Joanne, and it got better. It just kept getting better.
No, that's fair.
It wasn't really till he, arguably, when maybe we started to notice that there was more events coming, more effects maybe on the horizon. Yeah. But certainly it wasn't until I met AP where there was maybe even a question that things might be worse again. Like there was, because that's the other thing. Like I think if you come at it just from a theological perspective, there's very little point in actually analysing the character dynamics and because I think whenever it comes to stories like this and you've got a small group of characters, typically they comment on how people function and how they live. And if you're going to tell me that two of them are fake and it's just kind of...
No, it's true. But I think it would explain a couple of things. Like, he mentions that he feels like Jan and AP, like, they know each other. Like, he has that sense almost. And I have to say, the first time, when AP sees her, where he's got he's the back there with the gun, he's confirming that, oh no, it's just her. He looks over. They do look at each other like they know each other. I actually thought there was going to be them acknowledging each other, like they did know each other. So I was glad that was brought up. It would explain why we mentioned how Joanne, she flip flops in her choices at the end, and she's kind of all over the place. If she's not real and she's just there to mess with his head, that explains that for me.
I don't know if it does for me.
Okay.
Because I don't know why she would flip-flop necessarily. It's just, to me, that's kind of like covering up just a writing flaw to me.
Oh, it might well be. Don't get me wrong. It very well might be. I'm not disputing that.
Yeah. No, there is that weird recognition and that just that feeling he has where it feels like they already knew each other, even though they don't. Again, going from a character perspective, to me that felt like this sense of jealousy and paranoia that was there.
It did from when he addressed it, definitely. Yeah. But the way they looked at each other right at this, their first meeting point. Because I don't know, did you have that feeling there, or was it just me?
Actually, the scene played to me like he didn't expect her to be real. Like he heard the voice, but he wasn't expecting her to be real, and he hadn't seen another person or a woman specifically in.
No, that makes sense.
However long, to me, I read that scene at the time as just. Holy shit! Like, because then they come in and they all hug together. Like he puts the gun down and they all, even though he's had Zach at gunpoint for the last 10 minutes, they just come in and hug because there's three of us now, people, yay!
No, that makes sense.
Because and even if it is literally purgatory, I like the idea that they all deserve to be there for different reasons. Maybe we don't know why she's there specifically. Like, sure, obviously it wasn't the manner of death because if we're saying that Zach's there because he tried to kill himself, then that's the death. Whereas the other people, it wouldn't be how they died that caused them to go to hell. No, it would be something else earlier on.
it had to have been, because there's nothing actively wrong with them, in the sense of in the moment of the death.
Yeah, exactly. So, assuming you believe AP, I mean, who knows? Maybe he did lead her on, and maybe there was some sinister side to
we
it.
don't know, do we? We only have his word on it.
Exactly. So,
No, there are other moments I like. When they were in AP's house and he's playing the piano and plays Old Lang Syne, which obviously typically New Year's. It's this idea, a fresh start.
Yeah.
And Zach kind of ignores it. He sings along a little bit, but he kind of just goes off over to the bed on his own. It's like he has no interest in this fresh start.
Yeah, well, which is arguably why he again. I've went through about 3 or 4 different theories that I've liked since we started talking about this. But again, going to the idea that they maybe get to move on after this level and he doesn't is because he doesn't accept that. This is kind of going back to the one where that's why he goes to stage 2, if you will, or resets, or however you want to phrase it at the end. So there's a lot of interesting ideas to work with. I think it's a relatively solid movie in ideas, and it's relatively effective in what it's doing a lot of the time.
Yeah, it just has some problems.
Yeah, which makes it a very weird movie to kind of finalize your thoughts on and rate, because do I recommend this? Yeah, I think for science fiction fans, I do recommend it.
Yeah, definitely. It's weird. I think I'll give it a rating now. I know what I'm going to give it at this point, but I feel like if you ask me in 3 or 4 months, I'll probably say I liked it more than I did now, because the ideas will sit with me, but the execution in itself, some of the moments of the pacing won't be as fresh in my mind, so I won't be as aware of that when I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. But as far as movies with ideas go, it's one that does get you thinking. We've been sitting debating on what things mean, and kind of, and you've got that there. You got that from a character point of view. You've got that from a what's the world point of view. And I think maybe there's some obvious things we've not even looked at yet. Is it a simple, parable about not messing with things you don't understand? Because that's kind of, in this story, what causes this whole thing to happen.
Well, allegedly. I mean, I think as AP mentioned, the story of the kid hitting the power generator, and then the blackout happens, and obviously he thinks he's caused it, but in reality it's just coincidence. And so is that here again? Is it? I mean, we haven't really talked about it largely, but Zach kind of has a bit of a god complex for a while. He thinks he always like, I'm president of the world. Joanne's constantly calling both the men out on this, actually, of having god complexes.
Yeah, no, this is the thing. Which again, I think is why it's more interesting if they're all real, because they have this play off each other where they're both kind of have different god complexes. It's kind of interesting that. But again, that whole thing with the story and the generator with the branch, it's again, it's ambiguous. It's not telling you for sure that he's just thinking he's guilty for something that he's not. It's simply just offering the idea that maybe this is in his head, but maybe it isn't.
Yeah.
You don't know for sure. So it's an interesting movie. As much as we tangented a lot of stupid things in the first half of this, there's actually some interesting ideas here. So go on then. Would you give it out of 10?
7.5. I think execution's probably just a 7, but I'm bumping it up a bit just for the ideas. Yeah, it's worth watching though, for sure.
Yeah. It's tough. I might have to end up agreeing with you and go with 7.5, because I feel like in ideas, and then there's moments with the mood where, had it maintained that mood the entire time, this could go as high as a 9 if it did.
Oh yeah.
Right. But then there is these clunky character things later on, and it becomes clear at some point that this is a movie about the ideas and less about the characters themselves. And I don't think there was any reason why it had to lose that. I feel like, again, you give it another 10-15 minutes to flesh a few things out with the characters.
Yeah.
I think you could have had a film that was equal the interest in ideas, but equally also the character dynamics. And then I think the theorizing at that point would get even more complex, because you're saying, as I die, Jesus Christ. Which, by the way, there's a moment where he shoots Jesus with a shotgun.
Yes, there is.
In a church. He goes into a church and shoots Jesus, adding to that god complex a bit. I particularly like how he shouts up at the ceiling. He goes, "Hey, I'm going to have to talk to your boy for a bit."
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty funny. Yeah, so like I was saying though, if the character stuff in the second half was as strong as it had started with, and it kept that really going, I feel like you'd have this more interesting debate of, well, yeah, you can have all these big theological ideas and these big things of what things mean, but then the core character stories would still work on their own enough that it didn't matter.
It's true. I think it is maybe a fault of the film here, which is why I feel like I lean so heavily towards it just being hell and those other two not being real, because after the last like 15-20 minutes, those other two don't feel real anymore to me, because they kind of just go through so much so quick, whereas Zach does.
Yeah.
But with another 10 minutes to go through them properly, you kind of eliminate that easy option for me.
Yeah, I feel like I disagree with that, just because I feel like Zach also has a couple of quick things towards the end.
He has a couple, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas not as much,
I feel like it's a writing fault that makes them all suffer, so that's why I don't instantly go, oh, it's definitely those two who are... I mean, don't get me wrong, that idea is there, because the character wouldn't bring it up if it wasn't something the director or the writer wanted us to think about. But... I'm not ready to jump in the train. I actually kind of like that it could be purgatory, it could be hell, it could have just actually happened, it could be a completely scientific anomaly, it could be all these things, and I kind of like that it can be all those things.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm not willing to sort of pigeonhole it and say it's definitely this, because I like that it's completely open for all these different things.
You do you, but I've cracked it.
Tell Connor how arrogant he is. Tell New Zealand.
I got a god complex of my own.
A ginger complex, yes. Tell him how offensive he is to New Zealanders. I'll happily.
I will not apologise to that. I'm offensive to everyone equally. Just ask the Welsh.
But that is This Quiet Earth, or the Quiet Earth. Sorry. That's what he says in the movie, though. He says This Quiet Earth at one point. He actually says the phrase. That final moment, by the way, is beautiful when he sees the planet in the clouds.
Absolutely.
It's a really
the
pretty
music's
shot.
fantastic at that point.
Yeah, it's a really great surreal moment. So, let us know what you think of the movie if you've seen it in the comments and stuff. Like, subscribe, all the usual stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fudge for channel updates. If you want to support the show and the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailfudgetv. You can do that over there. There'll be a link in the description. Of course, you get to vote in an episode once a month. This month, all the voting that's up is there's a theme for the vote every month. And this month, it's all kind of irregular, shall we say, romance movies. They're all love stories.
I believe the word you've been using has been unconventional.
Unconventional. I was also going to say abnormal there. They all kind of amount to the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so patrons could do that. You also get adding movies to the vault, which is like a sort of user submitted list of just movies to watch at some point in doing the show. And every so often we pick one from that. You can get the link to the actual list of the vault. Everyone can see it, but you have to be a patron to submit movies to it. So there you go. So that's all that stuff, and that's us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, guys, and we'll see you next time.